All right, so this week we had Rosh Hashanah, which just finished, and it is the Jewish New Year. A lot of it has to do with introspection and talking about your own personal flaws and how to control your ego. And to be honest with you, I think that there is always, for any person, there's some degree of ego that's out of control. It doesn't necessarily affect other people. Sometimes it just affects yourself and your ability to control your own habits. But I think for this video, we'll just focus a little bit on the way it affects people in terms of politics. Now, this is a story from Washington Examiner called Turning Point USA Denounced Racism and Conservative Snowflakes Have a Problem with That. Now, I don't really agree with the tenor of this article, but it's sort of a very awful position to have to take because on the one hand, DC Examiner is trying to come around and defend work by Right Wing Watch, which is a pro-censorship group. They're affiliated with People for the American Way, so they're an openly partisan organization. And what was a point of contention was the fact that one of the spokespeople for Turning Point USA, Ashley St. Clair, had appeared at a function with a number of people who I would guess are considered pariahs on the right. And you can actually see the photo here. So there's Nick Fuentes, Ali Alexander. I actually have no problem with Ali. I would say Ali Alexander is one of the, I don't really think that most of these people have real agendas or beliefs in many cases. In some cases, they're just people who are self-promoters. But Ali Alexander is pretty much one of the more interesting people, especially given the fact that he was one of the people who was able to spark a big discussion on why Kamala Harris gets away with the identity politics when in many cases if you really look into her history, she's not really representative of Black Americans. But this whole gathering that they were, quote unquote, exposed for going to was attended by Nick Fuentes and Ashley St. Clair, who had been feuding with Nick Fuentes, and Ali Alexander and Kathy Zhu. And you have Baked Alaska back here, and you also have Jacob Wool over there. Now, none of these people, I would say, except for maybe Ali Alexander, are people I really have a very high opinion of, and Ali Alexander is really just a result of some stunts that he's pulled, and that's about it. Nick Fuentes is a guy who's all about how women have to basically live like they're Stepford wives, and you should essentially look for people who have zero personal flaws in your life and start to, I guess, live as if you're some sort of member of the Mad Men show. And, people take him to task because of the anti-Semitism. But in reality, I think people get hung up on stuff like that when it's really just a smaller facet of a larger, I guess, idiocy. Okay, people think that the fact that people have very sharp and bigoted opinions towards one group of people is really the worst problem. It's usually one of the smaller problems with these types of people. Same thing with Baked Alaska, for instance. This was a guy who had been for a long time promoting himself as this this edgy alt-righter, this guy who was making lots and lots of racist jokes and talking about how white people need to come together and blah, blah, blah. And it turned out the whole time he was just using it to milk actual racists for donations, and he didn't really care about any of that. So what the real problem is here is not anti-Semitism, it's not racism, it's careerism. And really, careerism is also the problem with the critic, this Madeline Fry. Because if you really think that it's a problem that these guys and gals are gathering together and having a party and eating or something or having drinks, then why is it newsworthy? It's not newsworthy. Now, one of the genesis one of the reasons that this thing actually happened was because Fuentes and others were dogging Ashley St. Clair on Twitter for a very long time, because she does have very shallow and, I would say, undeterminate conservative beliefs, if you want to put it that way. But look, if they want to get together and she wants to, I guess, make nice with these people, I really could care less. And I don't know why it has become such an issue nowadays that people choose to associate with one another if they're not in any position of responsibility. Now, I get it. So some people will come back to me and say, well, why then is it such a big deal that Ilhan Omar goes to speak at Care or at any number of crazy organizations, or you have the Nation of Islam with Louis Farrakhan meeting a lot of these elected officials? That's exactly the point. Those are elected officials. Now, you could say, yes, they have the absolute right to meet with whatever group they want. At the end of the day, they're still accountable to constituents. So constituents have a right to be mad at people that they elect. If the constituents are absolutely fine with it, if the people of Ilhan Omar's district have no problem with her appearing with these organizations and promoting these agendas, then there's actually nothing you can do, unfortunately. I don't think that it really promotes the well-being of the people of the 5th District of Minnesota where she serves. The same goes for any elected official. People make a big deal about who Steve King hangs out with. And to be honest with you, I don't really see a problem with elected officials even hanging out with some crazy people. Really, the problem starts to arise when they begin proposing things that are insane. And that's really the problem that you have with someone like Ilhan Omar or Ocasio-Cortez, or for that matter, senators like Ed Markey, the big senator behind the Green New Deal. Those are issues when you have somebody in a position of real fiscal responsibility, of real social clout. That's really when you start to see, I would say, a problem with elected officials associating with the wrong type of people. And even then, you still have to give them some degree of leeway, because they're entitled to promote their beliefs so long as their constituents are okay with it. And as long as it's legal, and as long as you're not seeing them harm other people. Those, I think, are positions that are sensible. So this Ashley St. Clair deciding to meet with a bunch of rejects. Jacob Wall is a reject. He's also, I believe, a fugitive because he's involved in some sort of securities trading scam. These people, if they want to meet Ashley St. Clair and vice versa, sorry, I don't really have a reason to care about it. Apparently, Right Wing Watch thinks it's a cause for real concern, and the DC Examiner, which is no friend of I guess conservative activism, they see it as a real problem too. I would say this, okay? If you decide that you want to meet a bunch of weirdos and have a few drinks with them, I think that, personally, I wouldn't have a problem. Obviously, Turning Point USA, they don't want to be necessarily associated with some of these clowns, especially Jacob Wall. But it's a consideration, and it's really a problem now that I think has gotten out of control, which is what I would call careerism, getting back to the ego issue. A lot of people, when Milo Yiannopoulos started to blow up back in 2016, and he was on TV, and he was on Bill Maher, and there were riots when he tried to appear at Berkeley, people started to latch on to this template of being a provocateur and being able to cause a ruckus and trigger the libs. And that was really, I think, the genesis of this careerist trend. Okay, there were other people who I think were able to harness it a little better than Milo Yiannopoulos, and they didn't burn out quite as fast. And now look at where he is. He claims he's bankrupt, apparently. What exactly is Milo talking about? Well, it's anybody's guess. I think he went to the straight pride parade a few weeks ago. But trying to sustain, I guess, a movement based on just a personality and just on a career is not what activism is. It's not what conservatism is. And to be honest with you, I think it's things like this, issues like trying to figure out who's on what racket. That's what makes me not want to be part of any movement, let alone conservatism. This careerism has really ruined a lot of the momentum that's gone into trying to fix the country since 2016. Now, look, there's some creators that I support and that I've donated money to, and I don't really regret donating money to most of them because in the end, I think that we do need to support people who do the work in order to provide an alternative to the mainstream media. But when I see these people who don't really have any ideas and who just go around and complain and say, well, we're the real conservative movement, like Fuentes, for example, his whole thing is, oh, the e-thoughts and girls who show their boobs on camera and stuff like that. Look, this is a solution that's looking for a problem. Okay, nobody really cares. Nobody really cares about these idiots who get on camera and sell their selfies and their titty pics to people on Snapchat. Nobody cares. I don't even own Snapchat, by the way. It's not something that desires a real social crusade. Okay, it's not a real problem for Americans. If you don't like it so much, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to these people's houses and put up some sort of black screen to prevent them from showing their boobs on camera? And I'm just picking on Fuentes because the rest of some of these people, they have even less that really distinguishes them. There's so little that is sustaining some of their careers that it begs a question. I know some people hate using the phrase, so instead of begs a question, it raises the issue of what the hell are these people activists for? There are organizations out there. This, I think, is the positive message I'm trying to say. There are organizations out there that do have a specific aim. Live Action is trying to shed light on abuses in the abortion industry. Okay, Lila Rose and Live Action. I would say if you're a person who's very, very anti-abortion, you should be interested in that organization. I personally I'm against abortion. I wouldn't say I'm the most hardcore about it, but definitely I support their work and you know, I commend them. And the same thing with Project Veritas, and the same thing with the what are they called? Judicial Watch. All of those organizations, instead of peddling banal talking points about how we need to return to a conservative America and constitutionalism and blah 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 and bitching constantly about this garbage and you know there's now these organizations. Turning Points is one of them, by the way. They're all about like this diversity and whatever. Diversity is really a side issue. Okay, if people of diverse backgrounds want to come and support your ideas will be good enough to attract them. Definitely, you can pitch it to people. You know, Colion Noir, for example, he's an amazing spokesperson for the Second Amendment. And lo and behold, he's a black guy. Whatever. There's other good Second Amendment people who are white people. Brandon Herrera, for example. So if you're able to present the issue very well, if you're able to be a good brand ambassador for the issue, not for an organization, not for yourself, but for the issue. So you have Lila Rose speaking out for the rights of the unborn. You know, she's an anti-abortion activist. You have Judicial Watch speaking out for the rule of law and preventing government abuse of private citizens. You have Project Veritas exposing media bias and big tech bias now. Those are the real brand ambassadors for the issue. And I hope to be a good brand ambassador for the issues that I care about too. But the careerism is not being a good brand ambassador. Having someone who goes around and sells trinkets with an organization's name on it doesn't advance any cause. It might advance an organization. This is something that I've had issues with in the past as well. You know, you have organizations, for instance, AIPAC, that their main concern is furthering the power of AIPAC, and through AIPAC they make it seem like if you keep supporting AIPAC, it's going to make Israel more secure, and that'll make America more secure. No, that's not going to happen. Okay, these organizations are built to sustain themselves. And then, therefore, you have some of these new people, and Fuentes wouldn't like to be compared to AIPAC, but this is the comparison. AIPAC is there to sustain AIPAC, and Fuentes is there to sustain Fuentes. And the DC Examiner, which criticizes people like Fuentes and TPUSA and Ashley Sinclair and St. Clair, whatever, they're there to sustain themselves. Everyone is in it for themselves. And when everyone's in it for themselves, the ideas get shoved aside. That's really the problem. And that's something that I'm trying to avoid, at least. Obviously, I want to make money, right? But I'm not really trying to make money with the journalism or with any of the writing or anything. I don't think it's really going to happen. That if it was going to happen, obviously, I would be much more gung-ho about it. But the bottom line is that if you're here to promote a movement and the movement is based around ideas, then it shouldn't be all about you. And that's really the problem that we're having here. So that's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe. So I am going to pimp my shit. But my channels are Bald Like a Leopard on YouTube, Chef Leopard on BitChute, Chef Leopard on Minds, also Chef Leopard on Subscribestar if you do want to give a little money. Not that you should feel obligated. And on Gab, @Starscream85. And I'll talk to you later.